The Science of Reading and Rubik's Cubing. Welcome to KZ Academy. I'm Misty, a credentialed teacher with expertise in second language acquisition, mathematics, and elementary education. With over 20 years of experience teaching, coaching, and tutoring, I'm passionate about helping students, parents, and educators understand the science behind how we learn. This episode is inspired by posts I made back in 2018 in online forums, which helped lay the groundwork for what is now known as the science of reading. Many of the key ideas that Emily Hanford later presented as her research were already being discussed and shared by me in these forums before she brought them to wider attention. It's gratifying to see that the techniques I've been refining for over 20 years are now being embraced across America. Her voice played a crucial role in raising awareness and bringing these ideas into the mainstream. Have you ever heard a teacher say, "I just want the freedom to teach reading the way I want to teach it"? If you have, hand them a Rubik's Cube and ask them to solve it. If they can, great. They might already understand the time, structure, and practice it takes to master complex skills. Solving a Rubik's Cube, like teaching reading, writing, or math, isn't about the freedom to twist and turn however you like. It requires strategy, consistency, and a clear method. If they look at you perplexed, send them this episode. Solving a Rubik's Cube and teaching reading have more in common than you think. At first, everything seems like a mess. Colors everywhere, letters and sounds jumbled. Most people start twisting or guessing, hoping something will click. But without a method, they just go in circles. Some give up. Others pretend they've solved it by peeling off the stickers or breaking the cube apart and rearranging the pieces. A lot of reading instruction has become like peeling stickers off the cube and calling it progress. In this episode, we'll explore what it really takes to teach reading effectively and why the do whatever doesn't work. Teaching reading isn't about freedom. It's about knowing the steps, practicing them, and passing the knowledge on. Let's dive in and solve the puzzle together. The history of learning to read in the United States. For more than a century, debates over how to teach children to read have shaped classrooms across America. The battle was often framed as phonics versus whole language, two opposing camps with very different ideas and equally passionate supporters. Each side believed their approach was right, but neither had real evidence to back it up. The truth is, the so-called reading wars weren't a clash of two equally valid ideas. They weren't a debate between experts who knew what they were doing. They weren't even between people who fully understood the problem. What we really had was a standoff between two incomplete methods, each missing critical steps to solving the puzzle. Neither method worked on its own, and when balanced literacy tried to blend them together, it didn't fix the problem. It is just like randomly spinning the sides of a Rubik's Cube, hoping that the colors would eventually line up. Without a clear method, you're just spinning in circles. The reading wars, the rise of phonics, the science of sounds. In the early 20th century, phonics-based instruction was the dominant method in American schools. Phonics focuses on teaching students to break down words into their individual sounds, or phonemes, and match those to letters. The assumption was that if students could master this process, they could read words fluently by decoding them. Phonics-based instruction at the time often lacked the depth needed to give students a comprehensive understanding of how the English language works. At first glance, phonics seems simple. The alphabet has 26 letters, or 52 counting uppercase and lowercase, that represent 44 or so distinct sounds. But traditional phonics instruction typically stopped at this basic level, offering students what is now considered a kindergarten level grasp of phonics. As a result, they were left ill-equipped to navigate the more complex patterns and rules of English. The rise of whole language, reading for meaning. In the 1960s and 70s, dissatisfaction with phonics instruction led to the rise of whole language, which argued that reading is a natural process, much like speaking. That children could learn to read by being immersed in rich, meaningful texts. Instead of breaking words tediously down into sounds, whole language teachers encourage students to focus on the meaning of the text, using context clues, pictures, and prior knowledge to guess unfamiliar words. While whole language instruction intended to cultivate a love of reading, it often created the illusion that students were reading when they actually weren't. This approach often left many children behind, especially those who didn't receive early phonics instruction at home or in preschool. Without a clear understanding of how letters and sounds work together, many kids relied on guessing instead of decoding. By third grade, they often struggled to read the 1,000+ common words they were expected to know. As I once wrote to Anna Geiger, a message that ultimately reshaped her perspective on the science of reading. These students don't just fall behind, they hit a wall. No one, not even a child with a remarkable memory, can memorize the thousands upon thousands of words in the English language. True reading proficiency doesn't come from guessing or memorizing. It comes from systematically building skills, step by step, on a foundation of phonics and decoding. The birth of balanced literacy. By the 1990s, the reading wars between phonics and whole language had reached a stalemate. Neither approach had truly solved the problem. Phonics gives the tools of sounding out words, but often left them stuck, able to decode at a basic level without developing true reading fluency beyond a kindergarten level of decoding. Whole language, meanwhile, encouraged a love of books, but skipped over the essential mechanics of how to read, assuming students would simply absorb reading through exposure. In an effort to reconcile these extremes, balanced literacy emerged. The idea was to combine the best of both worlds. Foundational phonics alongside the rich meaning-based instruction of whole language. On paper, it sounded like the perfect solution. But in practice, balanced literacy often leaned too heavily on the whole language side. Phonics was like giving the student one correct move to solve a Rubik's Cube and expecting them to figure out the rest on their own. With no clear systematic strategy, students were often left twisting aimlessly, never getting the colors to line up. Some became so frustrated they resorted to shortcuts, like guessing words based on pictures or context, which would be similar to peeling the stickers off the cube and pretending it was solved. The Rubik's Cube parallel. When the Rubik's Cube was first introduced in the late 1970s, it became a global sensation. Over 1 million were sold, and nearly every household seemed to have one. Yes, even my grandparents. People twisted and turned the cube, hoping to align the colors, but most could only manage to solve one side after hours of effort. Despite its popularity, few people actually knew how to solve it. Some shared their own strategies, but most of these were based off trial and error. Without a clear solution, no one could say for sure whether a method was right or wrong. People simply followed whoever sounded confident, regardless of whether the person truly understood how to solve the puzzle or not. This situation is strikingly similar to reading instruction. Just like the amateurs trying to solve the Rubik's Cube, many educators were relying on methods from experts who didn't know how to solve the puzzle themselves. Without clear evidence-based steps, it was impossible to know which reading methods were genuinely effective. By the 2010s, the Rubik's Cube experienced a remarkable resurgence, fueled by the availability of clear step-by-step instructions and online tutorials. These guides demystifying the cube, breaking down its seemingly impossible challenge into manageable, logical steps. Suddenly, People who had once struggled just to align a single face were solving the entire puzzle and doing so with speed and confidence, sometimes even setting record breaking times. What had once seemed hopelessly confusing became achievable with the right tools and a structured, methodical approach. The fascinating part is, when you analyze the various methods for solving a Rubik's Cube, they all trace back to a fundamental concept known as layering. Each layer of the cube must be solved sequentially, following a specific order. However, with so many tutorials available, the challenge is figuring out which ones actually work. Though some explanations are clearer than others, the successful methods all rely on the same underlying principle. The orientation of the cube, whether solving it from top down, bottom up, left to right, or right to left, the key lies in how you position the cube. The moves themselves remain largely the same. What changes is the starting perspective, which guides the sequence of actions required to solve the cube. Whole language and Rubik's Cube. The whole language approach to reading is like trying to solve the Rubik's Cube without instructions. The emphasis is on the big picture, engaging with the love of playing without a clear strategy or step-by-step process. Just as people tired of twisting a cube without really getting anywhere in the 1980s, people also tire of trying to learn to read using actual books with phonics that they have not mastered. In both cases, they lack the structured approach that leads to frustration and confusion. Just as twisting the Rubik's Cube at random won't solve it, guessing words based on pictures or context won't help students decode and read them effectively. Both learning to solve a Rubik's Cube and learning how to read require a structured, methodical approach to reach the goal. Complex skills require time and effort to learn. Understanding learning, a systematic approach. Our understanding of phonics and reading instruction has evolved significantly since I began sharing insights in 2018. There has been a realignment towards the science of reading, SOR. Much of the current understanding of SOR is rooted in the foundational ideas I introduced in early discussions within forums for parents and teachers. In 2019, I introduced a critical missing piece to the conversation, the concept of graphemes. Graphemes are the written symbols that represent sounds, and in English, they don't always correspond neatly to individual letters. While the term is frequently used to describe the symbols of other languages, it had not been widely applied to English when discussing our alphabet as a first language. In fact, at the time, both Google and MS Word did not even recognize grapheme as an English word. Unlike the straightforward letter-to-sound relationships taught in basic phonics, English uses over 100 common graphemes to represent its 44 distinct sounds. Understanding this complexity, the relationship between sounds and varied letter patterns, is essential for learning to read beyond a kindergarten level. Without this knowledge, phonics instruction remains incomplete, often leaving students to rely on guesswork when faced with unfamiliar words. This insight, which I first shared with the online community, helped bridge a critical gap in understanding phonics and reading instruction. Graphemes are essential to unlocking the full power of phonics and decoding. The science of reading now emphasizes the importance of systematic, explicit phonics instruction, helping students build a strong foundation for reading. To move forward, we must ensure that we're teaching reading systematically with clear research-based steps that build on each other, just like solving the layers of a Rubik's Cube. Practical tips and resources. In upcoming episodes, we'll explore practical strategies for effective reading instruction. But if you're eager to get started now, check out my Learn to Read Teacher's Manual Volumes 1 and 2 and Student Learn to Read and Write Journal. These resources offer a clear, systematic path for teaching letter recognition, phonics, and blending, like having your very own Rubik's Cube solution guide, for reading instruction. Teaching reading is much like solving a Rubik's Cube. Each step matters, and skipping one can leave you stuck. With the science of reading on our side, we can help students build the skills they need to become confident readers, writers, and problem solvers. Thank you for joining me today. If you have found this episode helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the amazing world of education. See you next time.